Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Filmnut. I am your host, Jeff Schubert. Glad you can join us. Well, the Los Angeles Weekly has described Maz Jobrani's Axis of Evil comedy tour as devilishly funny and extraordinary. Dispelling stereotypes about Iranians, the Middle East, in a lighthearted and hysterical way, his new tour, Brown and Friendly, is just as funny, and it is now available for you on DVD. In addition to stand-up, Jobrani is also an actor, having starred in The Knights of Prosperity, Better Off Ted, and the upcoming ABC pilot Funny in Farsi. Maz has guest starred in such shows as 24, in which he actually recurred, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he's appeared in the films The Friday After Next, The Interpreter, 13 Going on 30, and is in development to star in the film Jimmy Vestvood. Making you laugh and making you think. Here is Maz Jobrani. Maz, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Good to be here.
Great to meet you. I laugh so hard. It's not normal that I sit at my computer and watch comedy videos and I'm laughing so hard that I'm clapping at my little monitor.
That's a beautiful thing, man. I want to hug you right now, but I can't.
You're all mic'd up. So sometimes I like to start off interviews with quotes that I research from guests, and I came up with one from you, and that is, the day I decided to act, I considered myself successful. Everything else is icing on the cake. So when did you make that decision to act, and what does that mean to you?
You know, I started actually acting when I was 12 in plays in school, and coming from an Iranian background, a lot of Middle Eastern parents want their kids to be lawyers or doctors, so my parents kept pushing me in that direction, and so I studied political science in college, and I kind of steered away from the acting for a while, and then I actually went to graduate school to get my PhD in political science. I was going to be a professor. I started doing plays again there. I dropped out of graduate school to pursue acting again. It just kept coming back to me. And it wasn't until I was 26, I was working in an ad agency actually near here, and I was doing a play on the side just as fun, and I was making a dub of that play in the dub room. And there was an older producer who worked at the ad agency. His name was Joe Rhine. And he was watching behind in the back of the room, and he's watching over my shoulders, and he sees it, and he goes, "Hey, you have some good comedic timing. Have you thought about doing this?" And he was complimentary to everybody. And I said, "You know, Joe, throughout my life I've thought about doing it. I'm going to wait till I'm 30, save up some money, and maybe go for it." And he goes, "Let me talk to you." Takes me into his office, sits down, he goes, "I'm in my 60s. He goes, "When I was in my 20s, there were some things I wanted to do. I never got around to doing it. So if you want to do it, go for it." So I was 26 at the time. I went to my boss. I said, "Listen, man, this is going to be my priority." And I'll tell you, that moment on, like, it was almost like the clouds opened up. I really felt I was doing what I was supposed to do. I got into some improv acting classes again. I took a stand-up comedy class, and this is almost 12 years ago now. And
it's almost like a spiritual experience. I think so many people fight against themselves in terms of what they want to do, and what I interpret from your quote is that once you accepted the inevitability of who you really were and what you wanted to do, that was a reward in and of itself, and anything else was a blessing.
Absolutely. And somebody actually asked me one time, somebody asked me, that the reason that quote came about was this lady was asking me, when in comedians' worlds nowadays, when are you considered successful? Because she said, you know, it used to be like if Johnny Carson gave you the thumbs up, that was it. If
you get to come over to the couch.
You got the couch, you're in, you know. Yeah. Then it was like if you had your own sitcom, that was it, you know. And I told her, I said, you know, and she goes, what will be your feeling of success? And I said, the moment I decided to do this, I was successful. Everything else, it's like I'm a kid sometimes. You know, I'm like, I look around the set and I'm like, my God, they're making this show and I'm in it and I'm doing this. This is so cool. Or you're acting with Sean Penn or whoever. You're like, this is so cool, you know. So or performing in front of a lot of people. I mean, it's just everything else has just been this bonus that I never had thought it would happen.
And you said it before you made it, so it even means more than if you were just saying it for the first time.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not pretentious. Like, you know, actually, yeah. Jeff, as the checks come rolling in. No, yeah. I mean, I still. I mean, it's like, you know, as a comedian, whether I'm in at the Comedy Store on a Tuesday working out in front of 10 people, you know, or I'm in front of, you know, 2,000 people at the Wiltern doing a show, I'm excited to be on stage. Now, of course, the vibes are completely different, and you know, so, but some nights that 7 or 8 person thing can be rock and roll. I mean, it's just, you get the best feeling. You come up with a joke in front of those 7 or 8 people that's a new joke. Right. You're like, oh man, that was so cool. And you could do a show in front of 2,000 people and like just be like, I don't know. I felt like the material was old, whatever. Yeah. I'm just saying. So no matter what, it's the experience of doing it and being able to do it and deciding to do it. And it's exactly what you said. I mean, I tell everybody, I go, You know, I got friends now who are lawyers, and some of my lawyer friends are miserable. And I go, dude, what was it that you used to do as a kid that you would do for free? Like, you know, whether it was sports or whatever, photography, painting, whatever it is. And I say, start doing that as a hobby, and then maybe eventually you can turn that into something. You know, because you said a lot of people fight themselves, man. A lot of people go, oh, I got to pay the bill, I got the mortgage, and that's all good and true. But at the same time, set aside a couple hours, you know, a week to just do whatever it is that really, really like feeds your soul, you know?
And just to kind of wrap it up and then talk about Jimmy Vestvood is, you know, the bad news to your parents is, okay, you're a comedian, you're not a lawyer, but you married a lawyer. So
there you go.
You
yeah,
got that
exactly.
in the family, right?
Yeah, or maybe, you know, if you play your cards right, you know, you never know. Maybe you get cast to play a lawyer.
There you go.
Hey, Mom, look at me now.
So let's talk about Jimmy Vestvood. One thing that independent filmmakers do to try to raise money for their film is go ahead and raise a little bit of money, make a trailer for that, and then kind of use that in other marketing materials to raise the funds for the full movie. That's where you're at with Jimmy Vestvood, correct?
Yeah, that's what we did with Jimmy Vestvood. A friend of mine and I, his name is Amir Ohebsian. We started writing the script a little while ago, and the idea was to have kind of like a Middle Eastern Pink Panther. And the goal was, you know, the story is this guy Jimmy Vestvood. His real name is Jamshid Vahedi, which is a Persian name, and he changed it to Jimmy Vestvood because he just wants to be American. He wants to be an American hero. He's a big fan of Steve McQueen's, and he's living in Westwood with his mother, working at a rug store. He's far from being a hero. And as the film goes on, he kind of gets caught up in this kind of like Hitchcockian kind of mystery that and in the end he ends up saving the day. And in the end he realizes that he should embrace his background. And it's not just about being Iranian, it's about any background or anybody who wants to be something else, and it's embracing who you are. And so the tagline for the film is, you don't have to be American to be an American hero. And so what we did was, my writing partner and I, we wrote the script, and we've been doing rewrites, and we got to a point where we said, you know what, we feel kind of good where we are right now. Let's see if we can get some interest in raising funds for it. So we did exactly that. We got together one day in Westwood, and we just shot this trailer. There was just this kind of like a teaser, and it's not necessarily in line with the story of what the film is. We originally wanted to take a scene from the film and shoot it, but we realized that you need the bigger context for that. So we just shot something that we thought would come across kind of funny, and we put it out there, and we got people that were interested.
Well, let's take a look at some of that now, and we'll talk more when we come out.
Great.
Because it's very funny.
Yeah.
In a world divided, where cultures collide, only one man can bridge the gap between East and West.
Vestvood, Jimmy Vestvood, like a Clint Eastwood, but Vestvood.
Jimmy works out every day to get into peak physical condition, using techniques from the West and the East. Jimmy wants to look his best, because even though he works at a rug store, he has bigger dreams. Much, much bigger dreams. Dreams that require finesse, skill, and ingenuity. Dreams of being a hero. An American hero.
Very funny. So, I mean, to me, I saw this, and it goes on for about another minute. You can find it on YouTube if you want to see the whole thing. Just go to YouTube and put in Jimmy Vestvood or Maz Jobrani, and I'm sure.
Yeah, or Jimmy Westwood in there. And YouTube still recognizes Westwood without the V's, but that's fine.
Now, okay, since you brought it up, what's up with the V's?
Well, you know, the Persians, when someone's got a thick Persian accent, they can't do the W's. So,
Gotcha.
you know, West becomes Vest, you know, Westwood becomes Vestvood. So the idea was that he changes his name, but he still has, you know, he still mispronounces it with Vestvood. So.
Now, a big part of raising money for a movie, which I'm assuming, I don't know what your budget is for this. I'm assuming you're thinking maybe, you know, some theatrical release, but for sure DVD. Foreign sales and DVD is very important. You've traveled the world doing your comedy. You have fans all over the world. You have a niche market, I want to say. I mean, everyone, you cross lines in terms of everyone thinks you're funny, you're very funny. But in particular, I think I heard you say usually 60% of your audience is from the Middle East or something?
Yeah, Middle East about 60%, the rest is kind of, mixed.
But a huge general audience, I would think that would be a big help in raising money for this film.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're right in that, like, I've had a chance to go all over the Middle East, like, and always performing in English, but like
Right.
Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Lebanon. I mean, there's a lot of people that I've had a chance to go see now and perform in front of. The one problem you run into when you do distribution overseas, first of all, the bootleg market there is ridiculous. I had a small part in 13 going on 30, and before it came out, my aunt called me in Iran, and she goes, "I just saw your film, it was great." And I was like, "It hasn't come out." She goes, "No, it came out here." I'm like, "Okay."
I can't even add it to my reel yet. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. It was crazy. So the bootleg market is ridiculous.
Wow.
And then the other thing is, I think that comedy, I think that action flicks translate much better overseas than comedy. But it's possible. I mean, we had Roberto Benigni did a couple of his films. Life is Beautiful. It did very well here. So yeah, I mean, that is the hope. The hope is to have it go overseas.
Yeah, generally, comedy is the most difficult to translate from. Forget worldwide, just from one part of one country to another part of the same country.
Oh, yeah.
But I would think, since you already have the world following, at least if I was on your management team and I was talking to money people on your behalf,
yeah.
I'd be saying, check out this guy. He's performed here. He's performed there. He's a known.
Yeah. No, we definitely put those numbers in. We go, hey, look, here's the number of, that's the beauty of the thing about doing stand-up comedy, or even like a DVD. I was talking about this to a friend of mine. Like, obviously, I would love for my DVD to, sell hundreds of thousands of copies, and I could be a millionaire or whatever comes with it. I don't know how much you get. I have no idea how many cents you get per DVD. But more important, really, as a performer and as a filmmaker, future filmmaker and the sort, is to be able to say, look, I sold 100,000 copies. It's more than numbers. Like if someone said to me, you could sell 100,000 but not get anything, I said, all right, cool, let's do it, so that I could take that into a meeting with a financier and go, he's got 100,000 fans that bought this. And that's the beauty of doing stand-up, is that you can take your numbers and bring those into meetings, whereas if I were, just an actor, just a writer, who knows how many people are following me. And that's the other thing with the internet now, with like YouTube hits and all that other stuff. It can come into play. There's this guy, I don't know if you've seen him, there's a guy named Fred, this kid who like makes these annoying voices and stuff. He's got like 5 or 10 million hits online. Right. And he's getting, the people want meetings with the guy. And all he's doing is like going doorbell ditching in his neighborhood. Right. It's really weird. I don't get it at all. But
very frustrating.
Very frustrating, but he's got 5, 10 million hits. So you go, hey, the guy's taking meetings.
Let's get to our first I am of the show. Mr. Paisley would like to ask you, do you ever get nervous before a big show? Any tips for the performers out there about getting ready for a show?
I get excited. I don't get necessarily nervous. And the reason, I think, is that when you do stand-up comedy, the way you get better is to get on stage as much as you can and write as much as you can. So, you should be getting on stage 5 to, I'll talk to the camera, 5 to 10 times a week, and as much as you can. And so what happens is, for example, there's been times where I've gotten on stage, twice in one night, sometimes 3 times in one night. And the same material will kill in one room and die in another. And so once you start realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's a million other factors involved. I could be tired, the audience could be tired, they could just not get me, or whatever it is. You let all that go and you go, okay, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to have fun on stage, or I'm going to try out this new material, and that, I think, helps kind of lessen the nerves that you might have about, oh my God, every show I have to kill on every show. No, you don't have to kill on every show. Everybody's died. Richard Pryor, on stage, did poorly and died. I mean, we all have died. So. And
then it's also, you can use it as a learning tool. As you track your material, what consistently does well in front of audiences, what doesn't do quite as well. Your hits and your misses, as Big Al used to say to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A mutual friend of ours.
Yeah, absolutely. I would, and I tape record every set, so I could listen to it in my car. And
Any difference in how you feel? Let's expand that nervous question to right before a set versus right before a director says action.
No, I think
acting versus comedy.
Yeah, it's funny actually. It's funny you say that, because as acting, the key is to get into the moment and the scene, and so what you do is, just make sure your lines are there, and maybe think about, like, one thing that with acting that I've always done is, like, think about what was happening in the moment right before, so that helps you come in, So let's say, for example, it's a scene where you and I are just about to argue, and so I just think, like, what happened just before this argument? Well, you walked into the room and you threw your whatever your briefcase at the wall and put a dent in the wall, or whatever it is that I need to be there for. Then I'm ready to go, and we go. Stand-up's a little different in that you do stand-up so much. First of all, your material you've got, your material you're ready to go. You're thinking about, okay, what are the first few things I'm going to say? A lot of times what I try and do is find things that the local audience will appreciate. Wherever I am, whether it's like some other city or wherever, something like that. So
make fun of the neighboring city to
make fun of the neighboring city, or if something happened that, like, they, or if there's a street that's famous that, so that's kind of where I'm running in my head, going, okay, what am I going to start off with? What am I going to start? But it's funny because when I first started doing stand-up, I had done acting since I was a kid, so I'd learned, you got to breathe and relax and I'll do all these, like, breathing exercises and voice exercises and get in the moment. And so I was in the back of the Comedy Store kind of doing that, and I'm looking around, I'm like, why aren't any of the other comedians doing these warm-ups? And I realized that's not what it's about, you're in the back, you're talking, and someone's like, hey, Maz, you're on. So you just run on stage, hey, what's going on? How's everybody doing, Well,
I think the lesson to be learned from your answer with regards to acting is, if you're nervous, if you're focusing on what you should be doing the moment right before, if you're into that, you won't be nervous. And if you are nervous, it's because you're not focusing.
Yeah, and I think, look, nerves are natural. I think that the more you realize, it comes with doing it more and more, number one. Number two, it comes with realizing I am in the right place, there's a reason they cast me, I'm the right guy. Because if you're in your head, you're like, oh my God, Steven Spielberg's about to say action, and how did I even get this part? What am I doing? And you're in your head, he's going to say action, you're going to be staring, But I've been guilty of that, whether it's been in an audition or earlier, I've had, like, brain freezes, and because I'm thinking something else, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So really, it's just about, like, embracing it and going for it and having fun with it.
Drink Moxie would like to ask or comment. You've done many guest spots in big-time shows. Do you have a favorite that you've done? What differences did you notice in their productions?
I've enjoyed, most of them. One of my favorite experiences was I got a chance to do, I did one scene, it was a good scene on The West Wing. It was with me and Martin Sheen and John Spector, and I played the Saudi ambassador, and there was, some stuff going on in Saudi Arabia where there was protests going on, and so they called me into the Oval Office, and I sat with these two really titans of acting,
right.
And I got to go, and it was kind of this scene. It was written in a way where we're kind of going toe to toe, and not in a yelling way, but in a diplomatic way.
Yes.
So they were saying, hey, you need to kind of, you need to make sure that you put a clamp on these protests, and I was kind of saying, well, when these protesters really want to offend us, they call us Americans. So it was kind of a cool experience. And then what was really cool was in between takes, I got to, like, kind of hang, outside with them and just talk, whatever. And it was really a cool experience. But like I said, I've been lucky to perform with a lot of good people. And one thing you realize with production is, first of all, TV usually moves a lot faster in terms of, when you're a guest star. Like, I did ER, and they were like, it was like boom, 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 done. In films, depends on who the director is. You could shoot, I had 2 lines on the movie Dragonfly with Kevin Costner.
Right.
And I was supposed to work one day and deliver the 2 lines. They kept me a second day because they were like, we're going to do this scene from this angle, take all day to shoot it, and then we're going to take the other angle. I was like, my God, this is slow.
Right.
There's Tom Shadyac, I think, was directing that. But the other thing that I've noticed, obviously, and I don't know if a lot of people, people that are in the business know, the 4-camera comedy versus the single-camera comedy.
And most comedies are 4-camera.
Well, nowadays it's kind of mixed.
Mixed, right?
Yeah,
and Funny and Farsi coming up, and Knights of the Prosperity and Better Off Ted.
Single-camera.
All single-camera.
Yeah. But 4-camera, the beauty of 4-camera was and is, the schedule for an actor, it's ridiculous. It's like you work like 20-something hours a week. And you feel like you're robbing somebody. You're like, you're paying me to do this,
right.
You show up on a Monday, you do a table read at 9:30. They give you bagels, then they're like, okay, actors, go hang out in your trailer while we tweak some things, and then you rehearse a little bit, rehearse throughout the week, and then you shoot it on Friday. But single camera, like when we did Nights, you know, it was like shooting a movie, because one of the things about nights, and this is something people don't realize, is, I mean, obviously, whatever, I'm not saving lives, I'm not digging ditches, you know, so I'm on a set, so it's like I'm not complaining, but the hours were pretty harsh. I mean, it was like you would start at like Monday at 6 a.m. and you would do like 14-hour days every day, and every day gets later because SAG has a rule where, you know, you got to give the actors a 12-hour turnaround. So as we go later and later, your call time gets later. So by Friday, you're starting at like noon or 1, and you're going into 3 or 4 in the morning, and we're shooting in New York City.
So if you get off at 2 in the morning, you can't work again until 2 o'clock the following day.
Exactly, that's the idea. But if you get off 2 in the morning on a Friday, then they start you again 6 a.m. on Monday.
Right.
So I was in New York City, and we'd be shooting this, and the thing was, it was an ensemble show. Even though Donald Logue was really the star, we were always doing stuff together. So the problem is, and filmmakers would know this, and as an actor, it hit me when I was doing it. I was like, oh my God, you know, if we're doing an ensemble show and there's a scene where we all got to be around a table talking about our plans on how to rob Mick Jagger, well, the director's gonna have to cover you and him and him and him, and just keep going all the way around, and that takes forever. Right. And so you would just be exhausted. I mean, it was ridiculous how, you know, they yell cut, and you just put your head down on the table and nap till the next, you know, the next take. So yeah.
That's great. Now, funny and Farsi. What I think the pilot was bought by ABC. It's currently in post-production. At least that's what's listed on IMDb. What else can you tell us about it? What's it going to be about? And hopefully, will you get a better time slot than Nights of Prosperity?
Well, Funny and Farsi is based on a book by a lady named Firuze Dumas. She wrote a book about growing up in Newport Beach with her Iranian family when she was, you know, I don't know, 12 or whatever, a young kid, and the family had come from Iran to America in the early 70s. So it was before the Iranian Revolution, and they just kind of stood out like a sore thumb. You know, they were an immigrant family. And what happened was ABC bought the rights, and then they hired a writing team, Nestoran Dubai and Jeffrey Hodes, who've written on, and I think they exec produced on According to Jim, and something else called Rita Rocks recently, and Third Rock from the Sun. They've done a lot of stuff. So these two wrote a script based on that book, and the best way to describe it is that it's kind of like The Wonder Years, but told from the perspective of this Iranian girl who's really American. You know, she has no accent or anything, and she's talking about, you know, her childhood, and it's got a little bit of kind of honeymooners in there as well. I play the father, and it's me, my wife, and the 2 kids, and then my brother who lives with us. And that's kind of the aspect of the honeymooners, whereas me and my brother, kind of like Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton, we go off and do crazy stuff, and then it always comes back. I mean, that's what the pilot has. It's like we all come together. Anyway, it was a single camera. It was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. It felt really good. I've heard, you know, good things from the writers, I mean, from the producers so far. But you never know. I mean, ABC is developing 11 pilots. Out of those 11, comedy pilots, out of those 11, they'll pick 3 or 4. So we're in the running, but you never know. And if we do get picked up, I do hope we get a good time slot,
right.
You know.
Right,
yeah.
Because Nights of Prosperity got moved around and all kind of crazy things happened to it.
Yeah, man, it's tough. People, again, I like, you know, people are excited for you when you get a show. But I'm always with this business, I'm always like carefully optimistic. You know, I'm wishing for the best, but I was on another show on Fox. It was called Life on a Stick. That got canceled. Nights of Prosperity got canceled. I just had a recurring on Better Off Ted, which hasn't been announced if it's been canceled, but it feels like it might be going in that direction. And you know, some of these shows were good shows, and it's just like you said, it's like they put it on air, and if the right promotion isn't done, or if the right timing isn't done, or there's certain things, you know, you go up against American Idol, you're screwed. You know?
Seinfeld might not have been Seinfeld if it didn't get moved to Thursday nights in an NBC block at the time, which was a juggernaut. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, speaking of Better Off Ted, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, the DCD would like to ask, people talk about being on the set of Better Off Ted. Oh, please talk about being on that set playing Dr. Bamba.
But Better Off Ted was fun, man. Better Off Ted, the creator is Victor Fresco, who also created Life on a Stick, and was also he was also involved with My Name Is Earl. I don't know exactly. I think he was a writer on there, or like I'm not sure exactly. He wasn't a writer on it. He was like whatever. He's a developer. He's a showrunner. Victor. And Victor's very funny. He also did Andy Richter Rules the Universe. Victor's very funny, and he's always doing stuff, and it's, you know, you want to be involved with stuff Victor's doing. And so this show came along, Better Off Ted, and I went and auditioned for it, and the set was so much fun. You know, all the actors were cool, and I got to play this wacky doctor, Dr. Bamba. I mean, I don't know if you saw it much, but it takes place in this company that is this like company that just does not care about people, but they're like, it's like, let's say GE, but like very, very like, maybe that's true. That,
Sorry about that, Brian.
Yeah, no, but like maybe like, but like demonized, you know, extremely, and so like I was one of the researchers there, and I was kind of in charge of like coming up with like weapons technology and stuff. Like in the pilot episode, I come up with a way to turn pumpkins into weapons. Nice. And it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun. One of my favorite episodes I got to do recently, I got to I did an episode where one of the other office workers, his mom and I started an affair, and it's just, and I'm like in the office, kind of like showing off about it, talking about it. I don't realize that it's her mother. Malcolm Barrett was the guy who played Lem, and so he's just totally embarrassed that this is happening. And it was just a lot of fun, man. Yeah.
Let's see. Mr. Paisley would like to ask you: do you have any comedians you've admired throughout your career, and do you think you've taken anything from them and made it your own?
Yes, I steal material all the time. No. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I first started out, Eddie Murphy was the guy. I was a 10, 12-year-old kid. I mean, when I first got interested, I should say, in comedy, 10, 12-year-old kid, and he was the guy, and I wanted to be like him. But then, you know, I was just a fan, and then finally, when I got into it, I started really listening more and more to Richard Pryor. And the thing that I like about what he did was he talked about social and, you know, and political stuff, same way Lenny Bruce or Carlin and all these guys did. And the more I do it, you know, as a Middle Eastern American, the more those issues seem to be what interests me. Also, I was a political science major, so I like the politics and the sort. So if I can take some political point and make it funny, then I think I'm doing my job. You know, I always talk about, there's a Public Enemy song called He Got Game, and they go, you know, F the game if it ain't saying nothing. They don't say F the game, they say the actual F word. F the game if it ain't saying nothing. And the whole point is, like, you might have game, but if there's not something behind what you're doing, then what's the point? And so for me, number one, be funny. But number two, if you can be funny and have some sort of point that you're making, then, you know, I'm a big fan of that.
Well, you may have liked my introduction of you then when I said make you laugh and make you think.
There you go. I love it. Yeah.
Because I think there is substance to your work, and I think it's very clean too.
Thanks.
You know, I'm not one of those people that like damn people that want to go blue or use foul language. You know, if I'm paying to make me laugh, and I'm happy if you do that.
Yeah.
But it is something to note. I mean, and there is a little bit of extra, you know, kudos or credit if you can make me laugh as hard without having to go there.
Yeah.
I mean, that says something a little bit more about your work, I think, and I think your work has that.
Well, thanks, man. And I think, I do have some cuss words here and there, but it's like, I think that part of it is, some guy, if you're good at it, you're good at it. You take it, like Andrew Dice Clay did what he did,
Right.
and as the Sam Kinison, as it prior for a long time. But
Right.
so if you're good at it, you nail it.
Right.
But I think a lot of times people lean on cuss words as comedians when the material isn't there. So they feel that if they really hit that cuss word, and it starts, like usually like younger comedians really lean on it. But I think we all grow through it and go, oh, I don't necessarily need that.
I think screenplay writers do the same thing with movies as well. Sometimes they'll lean on the cuss words to be funny.
Sure.
Instead of challenging themselves to make it funny in the dialogue or then leave it to the director to direct the actor. You're not credited as much as a writer on the sitcoms you've worked on, but I'm just curious, as a comedian who's traveled the world, successful DVDs, and et cetera, do showrunners, do producers come to you and say, hey, Maz, can you make this funny? Can you juice this a little bit?
I haven't had this, I think I'm maybe I'm getting into that a little bit more. I think as your star rises a little bit and people see your success and they go, okay. And also it depends on what the project is. Like, for example, in Funny and Farsi, I knew the writers from before. They'd hired me on another show called Rita Rocks, and they were really cool. They said, listen, if some of the wording here isn't quite what you feel like you would say, talk to us about it. And they were very open. And there was times when they said, oh, cool, let's try it that way. And there were times when they said, no, let's keep it the way it is. So you run into that. You know, I did Curb Your Enthusiasm, which was all about, I mean, that was so much fun. That's just talk.
Yeah.
And then I also, again, like I said, I think it depends on what the project is. And you start feeling comfortable with the director or whoever, and you go over, hey, man, my guy wouldn't say this. He'd say it like this. And most people are pretty cool with that, you know.
Cool. Candy Cane would like to ask, do you find acting in drama more challenging than comedy, and which do you like better?
Boy, I like both. It's funny. Every comedic actor seems to want to do drama, and kind of vice versa. When I first started out, when I got my agent, they're a boutique agency, and they were just sending me out on guest stars on dramatic parts, and I got a chance to play those parts, and it took me a while to actually get my first sitcom. I think stand-up. I mean, I'm sorry. I think comedic acting, it's more about the timing, and you get that timing going, then, and if you're working with another comedic actor and they got it, then boom, it's off. I think dramatic acting, you take it takes more kind of inner, you got to get into your head, you got to get into your, the whole method thing almost, whatever it might be. Like I did a short film where it was very emotional and very, very hardcore emotional stuff, and I was just using songs that would take me there. In between takes, I would listen to the songs, really get down with it, and then play it, and then you help that to get me there. But I love both. I mean,
It's interesting because in the Academy world, if you will, dramatic acting gets, more of the praise, or is considered harder. It's like you don't see too many comedies nominated for Oscars and so forth. But I think that it's not easy, but easier, if you had to say, for a comedic actor to go drama than the other way around, because that comedy timing is a very difficult thing, to get if you don't have it naturally. I mean, you can work for it, you can certainly improve your level of it, whatever it is, but a lot of comedians are intense, passionate people. They're making jokes, they're making you laugh, but a lot of the things they're making you laugh about are things that they hold kind of very deeply, and they're taking their funny, cynical, whatever their angle is on it. So there's that drive to do the dramatic work, like you were talking about, comic actors wanting to do drama.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you go as far back as Charlie Chaplin, I mean, what he was doing, it was almost like an orchestrated, it was like a choreographed dance. I mean, you watch that, you're like, wow, he's nailing all these moments. And as a comedic actor, I say to myself, oh, a lot of comedic actors go, you know what, I'm going to do a Charlie Chaplin-esque kind of thing. And you try it, and you're like, whoa, that's a lot harder than I thought, because he's making it look easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, timing, and that's what, I was talking to a friend of mine just about this, that comedic timing is just something that's out there that I think you kind of have, but you can work on it, but it is. It's like when you get in with another comedic actor, you see that. You see, I mean, again, you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, they got all these comedic actors coming through and just nailing it,
And timing is more than just the right time to say your line. It's your vocal inflections. It's reading the other actor. It's so much more than just, when you say timing, people might think, when you say your words.
Okay, here's another example. Like right now, if you watch The Office, they have a lot of those quiet moments where the camera's on them and he's kind of looking at the camera and he's looking at you, he's looking at the camera. But there's a way to milk that and make sure to hit it.
Right.
If he comes in on his line, the wrong time.
Exactly.
Then.
And then editing also
helps.
Let's see. Pi would like to ask, I've done a couple of open mic nights and nobody laughs for anyone. Do you think they're a waste of time? I can perform in a cemetery and get the same feedback.
No, that's, open mic nights are interesting because if you think about it,
so let's explain that real briefly. If someone's trying to make it as a stand-up comedian, the first thing they'll do maybe is go to these open mic nights where anyone can go and sign up and get time and perform. In Los Angeles, most of the people that go to these things are pretty much only comics. So you're not performing for a natural audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the problem with it, is because you're there with other comedians. There's two things. First of all, some of them might be bitter and judgmental, and they might be in the back going this guy sucks, whatever. I'm not gonna laugh at this guy, and they don't want to laugh, because if they give you a laugh, then that makes them, in their mind, that makes them be less, which is not true at all, but that's what they think. The other thing, though, is a lot of them are either in the back of the room or outside having a smoke, whatever, going through their set in their mind. They're not paying attention to you. But you have to do open mics, because you have to hear your voice. You have to tape record every time you get on there. it's about you working out your set. Tape record that set. Once in a while, you're going to run into places where there is an actual either supportive audience or there's a real audience of people that came out to watch the open mic night. I remember I used to go to the place that was called Highland Grounds on Highland, where you paid like $3. They give you like a coupon for some sort of like coffee and a whatever. And there was actually musicians and poets, so they were a nicer audience, and they would actually sit there and laugh.
Sonoma Blue was another one like that.
Sonoma Blue, I remember Sonoma. Yeah. So so you have to do those, and eventually you'll kind of graduate to what's called bringer shows, which is now it's an open mic, but you got to bring your friends, and hopefully they laugh a little bit. And it takes a while. You just got to keep going. I also took a class when I first started out, and the good thing about doing a class is you get to do kind of an open mic, but in front of an audience that's going to give you feedback. You see, and the other thing to do is tape record it, and or find a comedian friend of yours that you can go to these with, and then you guys can kind of watch each other's sets and go, when you did that thing, what about this thing? So then you're getting feedback. That's what I would say.
Now, since we have a worldwide audience, for our viewers in the Middle East, do they have open mics there, or how would someone in the Middle East break into comedy? Would it be the same or different?
Well, that's the unfortunate thing. It's funny. I read somewhere that someone asked Chris Rock one time, I want to get into comedy. What should I do? He said, move to New York or Los Angeles, because that's where you're going to get the most clubs. Now, in the States, you could go to San Francisco, Chicago. There's other places that have some comedy scene going, but really the two places where you can get up, like New York is the best, because you can get up in New York like 10 times a night if you really wanted to, and that's what you got to do: stage time and write. So you take that and then you put it in the Middle East, where there's like comedy's new. It's the way we do stand-up comedy. They've always had a tradition of like joke telling and comedic acting and stuff, but getting on stage and like talking about your life and stuff is new there now. Just aren't that many venues. So a lot of the guys that do stand-up comedy really do it whenever like some of the American comedians get in the region and tour, and then they get in and open for those guys. But there are a handful of guys. I know a couple guys in Egypt that I told them, and they've started. They do like in Cairo, they do like once or twice a week. They've got like a restaurant or something. They do their own comedy night. So it's starting to pick up. There's a guy in Lebanon and Beirut does comedy shows all the time.
What about acting for someone in the Middle East or that part of the world that wanted to break into acting and be successful with that? One, what would their path be? And two, how is it in Hollywood in terms of the stereotyping and the type of roles being offered to people like yourself or from that part of the world?
Well, my first suggestion would be to try, now with the internet and being able to get a camera and everything, I'd say just try it where you are. Like if you're in, I know some guys in Saudi Arabia who are making like a spoof TV show with videos, and it looks really good, like funny stuff they did, and they just got the camera, they got a guy, and they did it, as opposed to get up and come to Los Angeles and try and quote unquote make it, because it's tough, and if you can create something that gets a buzz or something, or if you do an independent film and get into the markets, you never know what's going to come of it. If you have people in Los Angeles or New York that are relatives or friends or somebody, and you can come and you kind of have an open mind about it. Don't come to make it. Come to be involved and enjoy it and be part of it. Like if you want to come out here and do something, then do it, and come join a theater group and do plays. That's fine. But don't come going like I'm going to be the next star of the world. And that's what a lot of people think that. But getting there is out of your control, really. As a Middle Eastern, American. When I got into acting, the first few roles I had were just general guest star parts. But then you started seeing that, oh wow, I'm going on a lot of auditions to play terrorists. What's this about? And I got a couple of those, and I did them, and I didn't like it. So I told my agents no more. So I encourage all actors to try to create their own projects, whether it's a one-man show or getting into a theater group and helping produce, to writing a movie or doing a short, whatever it is. Keep active, keep doing that, as opposed to sitting in a coffee shop, waiting for your phone to ring. Because if that happens and you fall into that trap, then eventually what's going to happen is you're going to take the parts that you might not feel good doing, or you might not even get those offers,
Brown and Friendly, what are some of the things you talk about, and where can the viewer find it or buy it or see it?
So Brown and Friendly was was my solo tour, because I first did the Axis of Evil comedy tour with 3 other comedians, Middle Eastern comedians, and then we went, and then I went solo to Brown and Friendly, and I started that tour last year around this time. I continue to tour now in different clubs around the country. I'm going to be in Philadelphia in the next few weeks. My schedule is always at mazjobrani.com. And then I'm also going to go to the Middle East again and do some shows. I'm going to be in New York, so I'm always touring. The DVD is at mazjobrani.com. People can go there and get the DVD and everything, and it comes with like a T-shirt and a poster. If they don't want the T-shirt and the poster, they just go to Amazon and get it. But yeah, it's a little more biographical, autobiographical. It talks about growing up Iranian in America. But yeah, I mean, I felt good about it. It looked good, I thought, and you know, hoping people enjoy it.
Well, they will. I mean, I laughed my butt off at both of them. Axis of Evil is still available on your site, and that's you and is it 2 or 3 other comics?
There's 3 other comics. There's Ahmed, who's Egyptian American. There's Aaron Cater, who's Palestinian American, and there's Dino Bidala, who's also Palestinian American. And that came out on Comedy Central.
And you guys are all doing kind of like your own take on the stereotypes and myths surrounding. Yeah,
it was basically that came out when Bush was still in office. So there's a lot of a lot of that stuff in there too. And again, that's on Amazon as well. Brown and Friendly I shot right when Obama had won, and it took a year for it to come out and premiere on Showtime. It premiered on Showtime New Year's Eve of 2009. But it's got it's got some topical stuff.
Now, do you think that sometimes the comedy material that you do reinforces how Hollywood casting directors might view you and how they might want to cast you?
I think that the comedy I do tries to deal with the political and social stuff. And some of it my point of view is I'm an Iranian American, so a lot of stuff comes from there. I'm also a father now. I talk about being a dad and all this other stuff, married to an Indian woman.
Very funny bit on Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the U.S. military.
Yeah, I talk about things that interest me, you know. I think that, yes, if a project came out and they needed an bald Iranian guy, I would think that casting directors, let's get Maz in here, you know. But I do hope that the more, and I've seen it, the more casting directors see that get to know you and also realize that, you know, you can, like, if it's like for example, here's a perfect example. I was thinking of The Hangover, you know, and I thought that was a good film, and I don't know how they cast that. I don't know if it was a casting or if it was all packaged and done. But you know, one of the friends could have been this Iranian guy. He could have been, right. Or this Arab guy,
Absolutely.
Or whatever. Could have just been, or a black guy. Could have just been a guy hanging out with the guys. Because I have buddies like that. I go to Vegas for bachelor parties, and I got American friends, and I got so my point is that hopefully down the line, and it's not at all a dig against Hangover. It's just that as we evolve with these things, hopefully you're going to see more and more of that. I mean, already with like Harold and Kumar, you know, you kind of have some of that. But hopefully you see more and more where it's like, you know, a bunch of cops. Like in The Interpreter, I played a Arab American Secret Service agent, but they never even talked about that background. All they did at one point I said I'm from Brooklyn, which I was, and at one point one other guy called me. Throughout the film they call me Mo, and at one point one guy goes Muhammad. That's the only time you realize the guy's got any sort of Muslim Arab. But that's hopefully will evolve to that. You know, I always say like Denzel Washington, it's kind of like we're going through what Latinos and blacks went through before. You know, it used to be that, you know, blacks were always, you know, pimps and gangsters, you know. Now you got Denzel Washington, he plays the lead, and nobody blinks an eye. And that's hopefully where we're headed. Well,
here's hoping to that, because you're a very talented guy, very intelligent guy, and I wish you all the success with Jimmy Vestvood, Funny and Farsi, and everything else that you do, because you're very talented.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words, man.
My pleasure. And one more time, that is MazJobrani.com. That is MazJobrani.com. You can find Axis of Evil, Funny and Friendly. You can find his
Brown and Friendly.
I'm sorry, Brown and Friendly. Right?
Funny and Farsi. Oh my God, all these names.
Right, all these names. And you can check out his acting reel, and you can see that scene he was talking about from 24.
Yeah.
I believe that's on your demo reel.
Yeah.
On your website. That's going to do it for this edition of Filmnut. We are actually going to be back tomorrow night with Harold Perrineau from Lost, The Matrix, Oz, and a great new movie called The Killing Jar. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you can tune in then. And thanks again to Maz Jobrani. Thank you.